Statistics have shown that more people than ever have decided to remain single. Also, this Valentine's Day saw the premiere of Madam Web. Coincidence? Well, yeah, but we're going to talk about that and more on today's episode of the Geek Watch Podcast.
This is the Geek Watch Podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petrie.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 210 of the Geek Watch Podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me, as always, Geek Watch's own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petrie.
Hello, Brian.
So we had some good news and some bad news we're going to talk about today. We can start with the good news because we had the sports ball thing.
The sports ball thing. I've heard a lot about that sports ball thing.
Yeah, and we're going to call it the sports ball thing because
the Usher concert.
The
Reba McEntire.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about the sports ball thing, but the sports ball thing is known for commercials and trailers, and we got a few of them.
We did?
Including Deadpool
Uh-huh.
and Wolverine, which
right.
That trailer has broken some records. It is the most streamed trailer ever.
Really?
365 million views at this point.
I wonder, is that just because we've been waiting for it, or because we're excited to see all the people in it, or it's our first now over to Disney?
I think a lot of that weighs into it, and how Marvel has been recently, unfortunately. There has been a lot of anticipation about a pattern break, which definitely this movie is going to be. Mm-hmm. Certainly the idea that a character such as Deadpool and a writer/actor, Ryan Reynolds, their willingness to skewer even the people they're working for.
Yep.
There's going to be this anticipation of what are they going to say about Disney? Because in the trailer, they took a couple of interesting shots, one at Disney and one at 20th Century Fox. Disney, of course, with that line about pegging.
Right. It's nothing new to me, but it is to Disney.
Did you happen to see the 20th Century Fox logo?
I guess I didn't.
Yes, that big stone logo that was half damaged and sitting in that desert area.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so it was the 20th Century Fox logo. Uh-huh. So I have some theories about the trailer. Now, you've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
And what did you think about it?
It's one of the perfect trailers. It didn't give away the whole movie. We know we're getting the TSA, so that's going to bring in the Loki fans, and it's a great way to tie in those universes.
Right.
To have this multiverse. The thing about the multiverse of madness, we still got those little things that we enjoyed, like John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. We got those, and we got Patrick Stewart. So having those is going to be really fun. And so I have been excited about it, but the trailer has made me really happy about it. And I really can't wait to see it.
Oh, I'm definitely excited. Now, looking over the trailer, you're talking a lot of Easter eggs, and this is definitely one of those things you want to sit down and run it at quarter speed.
Yeah,
and
bit by bit, scene by scene. Like, there's Pyro. I haven't seen him in 20 years, you know?
Oh, yeah. And they brought the actor back, and we did have that scene where Deadpool is walking through what looks like a casino, and it looks like we're looking at the back of Wolverine, which may be a reference to Madripoor and his alias when he was a bar owner, a casino owner in Madripoor, Patch, where he wore an eye patch. It was like he was like an undercover. He was running away from it all. And of course, you may remember Madripoor from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because that was the city that they ran off to and wound up running into Sharon Carter, who of course turned out to be one of the villains, basically. So we may be going back to that. Now, looking at the trailer, of course, they didn't say a whole lot, but there were some scenes in there that I have some theories about how this movie is going to go. I do believe that eventually Deadpool is going to wind up getting pruned. I think this desert area was where he's going to wind up when he gets pruned, which explains why you have the ruined 20th Century Fox logo half buried in the ground. I think 20th Century Fox got pruned.
Yes.
Basically.
You screwed up our timeline.
And I do like the fact that they are using what happened in Deadpool 2 and all the time meddling that he did. Now, one thing I will say, though, that I have a theory about is I believe that from looking at the trailer that the movie is going to start out with Wade and Vanessa having issues, because it did seem like there was some distance between them, and Deadpool did mention that it had been a rough few years. I believe there is some sort of a rift between the two of them. Something has happened. Possibly something that has made Wade decide that he wants to give up being Deadpool to help his relationship with Vanessa. I feel like he has given up on Deadpool, and maybe the fact that the TVA is trying to drag him back in and become Deadpool again, I think that might be a part of it.
Keep trying to get out, but they keep pulling me back in.
Yep, which is why I think he was wearing the wig, because he's definitely...
a pretty blonde wig.
Yeah. There may be a possibility because of the fact that Wade is a mutant, and also that he's basically ridden with cancer, and it's his mutant gene that's keeping him from dying from it. If that has not made it difficult, nigh impossible, for the two of them to have a child. So I'm wondering if that doesn't play into it. And again, these are just speculations on my part, but it does seem like from the trailer, especially the beginning of it, that there is an issue between Wade and Vanessa, and that may play into the story. But really, with this movie, it could go anywhere. And from watching the trailer with captions on, we know that the TVA agent's name is Paradox. And that's about all that we know. Yep. But apparently there have been some leaks out there, and hopefully I won't see any of them. Good. So I'm looking at that trailer. The sports ball version of it was just basically a teaser for the trailer itself.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to pay to have the whole trailer put out. Yeah. Plus, they wanted to be able to drop an F-bomb in the trailer, which they did. Didn't show an awful lot, but I think the main thing the trailer needed to do, especially for me, was to assure me that Marvel wasn't going to meddle that much in it.
Yeah.
That we were going to get Deadpool.
We're going to get Deadpool the way we need to get Deadpool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The trailer certainly has me convinced, whether it's lying to me or not. It certainly played off that idea that, no, we're not going to do Deadpool light. We're going to give you the Deadpool that you want. We're going to take our lumps. We're going to let Deadpool talk trash about us, because that's the route you got to go. Yep. And there were other trailers out there. I am going to mention the Wicked trailer because, of course, I was curious about that. And we know there's going to be splitting it into two movies, which makes sense. And it does appear that the intermission break in the musical is where they're going to split the movies, which makes perfect sense. There is, of course, that dramatic scene at the end of Act 1, which they've leaned into toward the end of the trailer. So there was always that curiosity of how that was going to translate. I always thought that if they ever made it into a movie, I had an idea how they might translate it, and it appears from the trailer that's exactly what they're going to do. Michelle Yeoh playing Madame Morrible is great. I don't think I've ever heard her sing before, but it's going to be interesting to see how she delivers as a as a singer.
They've got actors who can sing, but they've definitely leaned into the pop casting. Which it's not necessarily a bad idea, especially when casting movies, because it translates different. You have to have screen actors and stage actors. They can move. Certainly, Idina Menzel has done great in her screen work. And when it comes to Wicked, we've talked about it before. I haven't seen the musical. I've read the book.
Right.
So.
And they are their own animals.
They're very different. And when I was looking through a playbill and I saw Nessa Rose and she had arms, and in the book she's armless. She was born without arms. I think they could have had that as part of her character as far as representation goes. But as far as like looking like the Broadway show, I think they've definitely built this world. The way the train moves and the way their clothes are, their uniforms. So I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say some people have expressed they were a little bit concerned about Ariana Grande. Could she play Glinda?
I've never had any doubts.
Yeah. She has acted before.
What sold me on her was her appearance on Saturday Night Live, where she did impressions of every single pop artist there was, and she nailed them.
Oh, yeah.
She did Britney. She did Whitney. She did them all, and I had no doubt that
she's very much a parrot. I would say the thing that sold me was I have seen clips of her online when she was in Nickelodeon, and that character, a cat that she played.
Yep.
And that character has a quirkiness to it that I think if she can tap into that, not necessarily exactly in that way, but if she can...
But Glinda has
a certain level of quirkiness.
Especially popular.
Yes. I do feel like she will have the ability to pull off that character. But we'll find out pretty soon.
Yeah, and I don't know how it is, but in the book, she's very vapid. And I don't know if it's like this in the play, but the way people pronounce her name at the beginning of the book, she says it's Galinda. It's pronounced Galinda. And I don't know if it's the same in the show, but she's very vapid. And she chooses her clothes and she chooses the place she sets and the lighting. She'll move lamps around in a room to make sure she's in the right lighting. And
yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of that in the
Is there
in the musical, and I have read the book as well. It's been a little while. But yeah, in the musical, there is a bond that grows between Elphaba and Galinda. And we'll see how much they lean into the book as compared to the musical. And like you say, there's some differences, like with Nessa Rose. In the book, she's armless.
Yeah.
In the musical, she's in a wheelchair. And of course, with the musical, that plays off really well. That allows.
So when she puts on the silver shoes, is she able to walk? Is that okay? All right. So that kind of makes.
The silver shoes were a creation of Elphaba's.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, it's not that way in the book. All right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, Elphaba exercises an awful lot more power, I would say, in the musical, and it comes from a book called The Grimoire.
Okay.
And she has issues with her powers because they tend to go off on their own when she gets emotional, but her abilities become much more powerful exponentially when she starts going through the Grimoire and learning how to control her powers, but sometimes they still go off. There is a moment where she tries to do something very good in the musical that goes horribly wrong. There are several points where that happens. And there is that question of, can she be a good person? Especially when everybody is basically saying that she's not.
Right.
And that's the big part of the musical. It'll be interesting to see how they lean into things.
Okay.
And I'm only going to talk about this briefly because it's because we talked about this at the beginning. I made that little joke about Madam Web. Neither one of us has seen it yet. We may Tuesday, depending on how much the Tuesday night movie club is eager to spend $5 to make our
Madam Web,
just to see.
There's leaning toward Lisa Frankenstein because I know a lot of people want to see Lisa Frankenstein, and
which is also getting bad reviews.
Yeah,
Everything is right now. It's sad and depressing. A lot of the reviewers that I know are fair and aren't quick to jump on a bandwagon of trashing something. They're not saying good things about this movie at all.
Well, yeah, I've seen the. I haven't read the articles, but I've seen the headlines and missed opportunities. Web of confusion.
Seen bad dubbing. Apparently what happened was in the rewrites, there were certain things that they had to change. And so they had to redub actors, but it's so painfully obvious that what you're hearing is not what they're saying. The lips do not match up at all. I've heard a bunch of just
That's a Dario Argento movie.
Yeah. So like bad dubbing in an English language movie. How does that work? But it seems like Sony has the complete opposite policy when it comes to movies like this that Warner Brothers has, which is Sony's just going to release them, and Warner Brothers, they yank them. Even if they're completely done, they yank them, which is what they did, of course, with Batgirl. What they did with Coyote versus Acme. They said it was unsalvageable there. They had, I forget how many millions on it, but they were willing to sell the movie off to somebody else to break even. What we put into it, if you'll pay us for it, you can have the movie, do whatever you want. And everybody said no.
Wow.
Nobody took them up on it. So it had to have been pretty bad. But Warner Brothers didn't release them. And Sony very much did release.
Twice.
Yeah. And I think right now, the only debate that's going on with Madam Web is what's worse, Madam Web or Morbius?
Really?
And there is a little bit of debate, and I'm starting to wonder, from what I've been hearing, if the people who are saying that it's not as bad as Morbius, if these aren't people that have some sort of emotional tie into Morbius being the worst movie ever, and that maybe they're giving Madam Web a little more credit than it deserves.
Benefit of the doubt, just so they can, you know.
But Madam Web is also longer. So the pacing is slow, but then on top of it, it's nearly 2 hours long. So it's that nasty combination. And the other thing, too, that I've heard is that we see in the trailers 3 of the characters in their spider outfits. Apparently, those moments are blink and you miss it. Otherwise, you don't ever see them in those suits.
In the movie?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, this is apparently something that only happens in the future. Apparently, this evil spider, Ezekiel, is wanting to kill them so that he can't be defeated by them in the future. So apparently...
Terminator rules?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you get a flash forward to understand why he's trying to kill these 3 powerless characters, because they are supposed to get spider powers in the future. But that's about it. So from what I understand, again, I haven't seen it, but apparently it's a blink and you miss it moment where you see them in their costumes and you're not going to see them in them again.
Ugh.
And if that's not the case, my apologies. Like I said, this is what I've heard. I haven't seen the movie, but it is really depressing. Some of the people who are being the nicest about this are saying, no, this is terrible. This is horrible.
No.
Which makes me sad because I don't want to see bad movies.
No.
But Valentine's Day wasn't all bad news because we got a Twitter from Marvel and we got that wonderful sketching of the Fantastic Four.
Yay!
Now, which I'm guessing you've seen it.
I have seen it, yes.
Now, from that picture, the one thing about it that makes me happy, and this is something that friend of the show, Kevin Pauly, has said, that if they did a Fantastic Four movie, he'd want it to be a period piece. Well, it's really obvious from this picture, this is 1963.
Right.
That I find to be intriguing. And they announced the cast, and some of this we had already heard about. Pedro Pascal as Mr. Fantastic and Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm. We get Joseph Quinn as the Human Torch, and if you've seen Stranger Things, then you know that's Eddie. And we have Ebon Moss-Bachrach as Ben Grimm.
Yeah, and I've seen him in 2 things. So I've seen him in The Bear, and I have seen him in Nosferatu. And I have nothing but good things to say. He's such a layered actor, and he can play vulnerable, he can play strong. So I have no problems with that. I'm excited about this.
It definitely has the appeal, and I really do like that it looks like at least it's going to start as a period piece. Now, of course, the question becomes that if the Fantastic Four was around in the 60s, why doesn't anyone
remember it?
Why don't they remember it?
Right?
But then again, we're now in the multiverse, so maybe they're not part of the 616 universe.
Were erased from history.
Or they fell into the negative zone. But if that drawing is meant to be indicative of the motion picture, then it means that they had their powers in 1963. People knew about them.
They were celebrities.
Yeah, you would think. I'm excited. But I have been looking over Marvel's schedule because there's been a whole bunch of things shifting around. And the obvious shift that, if you remember, for Deadpool and Wolverine, that wasn't supposed to come out until September. And they shot that up to July 26th. So that's been shifted.
Okay.
And we're talking about Marvel generally. So some of these will be MCU movies. Some of these will be Sony. August 30th, we get Kraven the Hunter. Okay. Which Sony's having a rough time of it right now, for sure.
We can hope for the best.
I am hoping for the best, but I have to admit, relatively speaking, I was more excited for Madam Web than I was Kraven the Hunter. But, oh, good Lord. But let's talk about, they're doing some TV stuff also on Disney+. We're getting X-Men 97 March 20th.
Yes!
Have you seen the trailer?
No.
They've just released a trailer for it. No. And it's really interesting to hear those voices
again. They'll take you right back to your childhood.
Yeah. And they are playing off of the season finale. Now, I am going to say, though, what has me a little bit worried is that there is a bunch of stuff that doesn't have a date yet. It's just like to be announced. Like this year, Agatha's Darkhold Diaries is to be announced maybe sometime this year. The Spider-Man show that was going to be Spider-Man freshman year, they've changed the title to Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and that's TBA. Okay. The Eyes of Wakanda series, which was another animated series.
Ooh, no, I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah, that's another animated series for Disney+, and yeah, that's depressing. It's like you say, you haven't heard of it. I only know because I saw it on the list, and that's another 2024 TBA. Then we get to 2025. Captain America Brave New World, they're now saying February 14th, so about a year from now, 2025. The Thunderbolts that was going to be in July has been moved up to May 2nd, and Fantastic Four that was May 2nd was moved to July 25th. So they swapped them.
All right.
And we've talked before about the issues with the Thunderbolts and
recasting.
And then we get to November 7th of 2025, and that's Blade. So that's what they're saying. Hopefully that doesn't shift around too much. But again, gone through a director, gone through a rewrite, and we'll keep our fingers crossed. But especially I feel that with the numbers that I'm expecting with Deadpool and Wolverine, that the idea of putting out an R-rated Marvel movie isn't going to be that big of a problem because Blade does need to be hardcore.
Yeah.
But then we get to another problem, which is the Kang movie, Kang Dynasty, which is scheduled for May 1st of 2026. But of course, it's not called Kang Dynasty, but it's now untitled.
Yeah.
So there's talk that maybe they're going to rewrite it. They're going to take Kang out of it. But May 1st is supposed to be when this movie comes out, whatever it turns into being. Now, in 2025, in the TBA section, we have Daredevil. We don't have any kind of release date for that. We have no kind of release date for Ironheart for 2025. And then, like I said, we have the untitled Avengers movie, whatever that's going to be, in 2026. And then we have the Avengers Secret Wars, May 7th, 2027. And that's all we have. Now, there's some other projects that have been mentioned that have been completely cut loose in space, like the Sony movie El Muerto, which is another one of these spider movies.
Okay.
But we have no idea when it's coming out. And at this point, maybe it won't, because if Kraven the Hunter tanks, I don't see this movie coming out at all.
Ooh.
Also, we have the other Marvel Sony movie that has lost. They had a release date and it got lost. Is Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Oh.
Yeah, now there is no release date for this. And for whatever reason, whether this is an issue with the animation or something else that's going on, this has me worried. Because this has been the Spider-Man that they have done that has been really good.
Yeah, the Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, this is the movie people are actually looking forward to. Short of Tom Holland and Spider-Man 4 with Marvel. This is the Spider-Man movie that people are looking forward to. And now it's been cut loose into space. And we don't know when it's coming out. It's going to have to come out.
Yeah.
Because Sony needs it to come out. They need a hit. So obviously something's got to be going on with it. It's not like Marvel doesn't have their own issues with projects with no release dates, because Marvel Zombies no longer has a release date. Armor Wars no longer has a release date. Wonder Man doesn't have a release date. The live action Wakanda series that they were working on doesn't have a release date. So with everything that seems to be going on, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but Hollywood is confused right now. Studios are sweating it in a huge way because they're either releasing movies that even they don't have any faith in. Madam Web, where the studio gave up on it, didn't even put out a second trailer. Even the stars of the movie were basically just not promoting it that well. Or they're yanking them before they even get a chance. It's like Warner Brothers is collecting tax write-offs or not knowing how they're going to do their release dates. Obviously, things change and plans have to change, and that makes sense. But it just seems like right now Hollywood is in a huge turmoil. They're still suffering from the issues with the strikes. There are rumors of another strike about to happen.
Oh, boy.
From the tradespeople, the crew union, that there's a possibility that they may go on strike. And if they do, that's going to be a problem because that's going to halt production. And they'll be on strike by themselves because everybody else has gotten their contract. So is Hollywood going to be able to sit through another strike? Are they going to come to the table realizing they can't afford another pause? Or are they going to get really stubborn and go, oh, we can break them? But with everything that's going on, it seems like everything in Hollywood is up in the air, but I guess we'll see.
We shall see.
And with that said, we come to the end of episode 210. Thank you for listening, and tune in next time for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch podcast. For Mandy Petrie, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the Geek Watchers out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch podcast. If you enjoyed this program, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch podcast is a Hanging J production.